It's time for a cup of coffee with Will and Chris at Slumberland Furniture. From Slumberland Furniture in Osage Beach, here are your hosts, William Holtz and Chris Schneider.
Hey, it's that time for your weekly cup of coffee from Slumberland at the Lake. And Uncle Chris, boy, we got another big show for you this week.
Man, it is Easter week, elections coming up, and there is a ton of stuff going on, man.
Yeah, of course, we have Mayor Harmison in the Osage Beach Mayoral Race, from lawsuits, political influence, and what's next for the city of Osage Beach. We'll talk about that, plus Commissioner Steve Duggan update. Camden County voters, we're going to go over the ballot, get you ready for Tuesday's election, plus Camdenton backing a grocery store chain coming to town. This an allegation from a current alderman. We'll talk about that. And of course, you heard crazy, 2 juveniles accused of threatening to shoot up Camdenton Middle School.
Yeah.
Got that and a whole lot more on this week's Cup of Coffee after this from Slumberland at the Lake.
Hey everybody, Daryl Cunningham with Slumberland Furniture at the Lake. We're in the middle of our Mega Madness sale, and that means great deals for every room of the house. You need to come check out everything, see the good deals, take advantage of 0% interest financing, and don't forget, we deliver the entire lake area. Come see us, Slumberland Furniture, where we're bringing happy home.
A cup of coffee as we wake up, in the car, or right here on Lake TV with Will and Chris. Kind of like driving, we do it every single day.
But we shouldn't do it while distracted. Did you know that drivers who text are 23 times more likely to be in a crash? So keep your eyes on the road and always remember to buckle up and put your phones down.
This Drive Safe, Boat Safe message brought to you by Price and Randall Injury Attorneys.
Now back to your cup of coffee with Will and Chris.
Yeah, remember to drive safe, boat safe all year round. And even though it was rainy on Tuesday, that weather's starting to increase. It's about boating season. Don't forget also to give a shout out to Lindy Spring, Lake of the Ozarks, the official water of a cup of coffee right here on Lake TV. Great water treatment system, whether it's water for your home, your business, hot water heater, water purification system. They do it all.
Yeah.
Great. We love Zach and Jesse. The Kimker family do a great job. We appreciate their sponsorship, partnership. So as we get into this week's cup of coffee, boy, it seems like every week, so many headlines. And this week we've got a lot. The big one, of course, it broke last Wednesday. Of course, no, it's worth saying, we interviewed Mayor Harmison last week on the show. We record on Tuesdays. We edit it on Tuesdays. It airs on Wednesday. And so this all really broke Wednesday. And that's when our interview with Mayor Harmison had broke. But it looks like there's some lawsuits being filed 10 days apart against the incumbent mayor of Osage Beach, Michael Harmison.
Yeah, it's, so the story reads, Osage Beach Mayor Michael Harmison facing 2 lawsuits related to his business finances, both filed just weeks away from the municipal election in which Harmison faces 2 challengers. So we all know about that. We've had them on the show. Harmison, elected mayor in 2022, owns Harmy's Cheese Store and more. The 2 lawsuits against Harmison, his companies, were filed 10 days apart. Both allege Harmison failed to repay loans totaling tens of thousands of dollars from 2023 and 2024. One lawsuit was filed by Gary Pruitt and Eugene Anowski in Camden County. The other was filed in Monroe County, New York by Favo Funding, right? So there's a different company, 2 different lawsuits here. Gary Pruitt is one of the most well-known developers in Osage Beach and the Lake of the Ozarks. So Pruitt's Point in Osage Beach, that has Hy-Vee, Target, and Lowe's, and Eagles Landing in Lake Ozark, that's Buffalo Wild Wings, Aldi, Menards, KC, CVS, and Kohl's. He also has a lot of well-known waterfront bars, Backwater Jack, Shady Gators, Lazy Gators, in addition to other projects. So he's a big player.
Not to mention one of the big players behind the effort to bring a private casino and resort to the city of Lake Ozark.
Right.
So, yeah, it's worth noting, very, very influential developer, Gary Pruitt. And the second lawsuit, as you said, is by Favo Funding, and that one's out of New York. And so this is all interesting because when you see a lawsuit with someone as well-known as Gary Pruitt, red flags go flying, right?
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is, what would a guy like Gary Pruitt be interested in I couldn't see any interest or anything worked in that were made public in this, but I'm just curious what a $30,000 loan would be of interest to him. Now, according to the Missouri Ethics Commission, Pruitt and Anowski have not contributed to any of the three candidates for the upcoming mayoral race. The two involved in the private casino. There's two involved in the private casino, which Gary Pruitt is big in, that are backing Richard Ross. And you're not sure if there's any carryover there. And it's worth noting that Fred Ross, no relation to mayoral candidate Richard Ross, the billionaire businessman and entrepreneur, he's the largest contributor currently to Mayor Michael Harmison, of course, the owner of Big Thunder and the largest investor behind the Lake Oasis amusement park project. And so there was a lot of things when you saw two different lawsuits and the timing broke last week.
Yeah, you knew there was just ugly, dirty, politics stuff going on. Tuesday afternoon, March 24th, the city put out a brief statement regarding the lawsuits. And that said, the mayor and the Board of Aldermen are aware of civil litigation recently filed against Mayor Harmison business and will continue to evaluate information as it becomes available. Because this matter concerns private business activities of a city official and not city operations, the city has no further comment at this time. Harmison, meanwhile, posted the following to his Facebook page, responding to all of this. He said, "Good morning, City of Osage Beach. As we head into these final 13 days of the mayoral campaign, I want to talk about something every true leader understands, the entrepreneurial spirit." So this is part of his running for mayor here. He says some of the greatest leaders our country has ever known, including Donald Trump, have faced high-profile business challenges. So he kind of tied what's going on with him into what happened to Donald Trump. He did say, Harmison did say, "For political reasons only, some are spending their time digging into my private business struggles because they can't find a single flaw in my record as your mayor. Make no mistake, folks, my loyalty to the citizens of Osage Beach can never be bought off. I will never allow anyone to control me or expect me to deviate from the oath I have sworn as your mayor." And then he goes on and talks a little bit more, but that's basically how he responded to this. And with the timing and everything, this is political, right?
Sure.
This is all political stuff going on here.
Yeah, and it's not like the mayor, Michael Harmison, is acting like he's not delinquent on these loans. He actually claims that the loan that involved Gary Pruitt had nothing to do with Gary Pruitt, but instead Eugene Anowski. Harmison claims the loan was solely with him, and the one with Favo, it was worth noting that it was a $55,000 loan that was supposed to be paid back at a revenue generated through his business. He did already pay back $56,000, so $1,000 more, and they're suing him for $22,000 plus court cost. Now, the real question comes up, is there a conflict of interest for the mayor acting on behalf of the people of Osage Beach to conduct his personal business to solicit loans from a developer without divulging of that information to the board? Should Mayor Harmison disclose or reported the $30,000 loan, whether he believed it was with Eugene Anowski, once he was made aware that Gary Pruitt was involved? There was an ordinance, 23.38, which would force any elected official in Osage Beach to divulge of any development, project, loan, or ongoing business that was greater than $10,000.
Right.
Here's the caveat. This was signed in May of 2023 by the Board of Aldermen, including Mayor Michael Harmison. That's 2 months after allegedly receiving the loan from Anowski and Gary Pruitt. Now, the mayor says there was no conflict of interest, again, that it was with Anowski, not Pruitt. He also says that he consulted with Osage Beach attorney Cole Bradbury, who looked into it and said there is no conflict of interest here, this according to the report from Lake Expo. And so you read Harmison's post on Facebook, and when you look at the statement put out by the Board of Aldermen, they said a whole lot of nothing, but they had to because they were made aware, and legally, they can't really say anything good, bad, or indifferent that could impact an upcoming election within 15 days.
Yeah, they said as we are only days away from an election, which includes a mayoral candidacy for the city, we feel it best to mirror the policy set forth by the Missouri Ethics Commission regarding this issue. That policy denotes that no complaints or allegations regarding elected officials are processed within 15 days of an election. So they're like, hands off. We kind of know all of this is election related, so we're just going to let it sit there for now, which is probably a pretty good policy, I guess, which is why they're going that way. So It's interesting. All this is happening right here at the lake.
And literally, the upcoming election is Tuesday.
Yeah.
And when you look at the ballot, you see all three names, the incumbent Mayor Michael Harmison and both challengers Richard Ross and Angie Schuster. And so there's so many questions to be asked here because I'm hearing murmurings that I couldn't get confirmed that the Board of Aldermen had asked Mayor Harmison to voluntarily resign.
Really?
Which he said absolutely not.
Wow.
Which you could anticipate if that happened. That's allegedly, right? And so let's say that the voters of Osage Beach have all this information and end up electing Michael Harmison.
Right.
At that point in time, is the Board of Aldermen going to try to get him impeached? And then what happens if that's successful? Or does the Board of Aldermen say, this is all hypothetical. Wait, the people of Osage Beach had all this information and still elected the mayor. And so then do the Board of Aldermen to say they want to act their executive power in spite of what the people of Osage Beach? And so this is going to be crazy because Richard Ross and Angie Schuster probably couldn't be any more pleased with the timing of this. And so what I fear, and what was already going to be an incredibly tight race, just in looking, asking questions, I believed it was going to be a fairly tight race. But now you're going to have a percentage of the people that were going to vote for Michael Harmison probably split their vote between Richard Ross and Angie Schuster. And so right now, it's a toss-up. And like I said, hypothetically, if Mayor Michael Harmison ends up being reelected, then what?
It's hard to tell which direction some of these things are going to break. They could also go the other way where everybody looks at this and says, well, this is dirty politics. This isn't right. You know, I was on the fence about Harmison before, but now I'm all for Harmison because of all this dirtiness going on. You really don't know which way it's going to break. It'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, it's been a crazy environment and climate on Facebook.
That's one of the reasons why I would never want to be in politics, you know, which is a sad thing because there's probably some really good people out there that would get into politics that don't want to have anything to do with all this crazy dirtiness that goes on, you know?
Yeah, it has been an ideal opportunity for the opponents to get the memes and the graphics, and it has been a wild climate on Facebook. All right, so we're going to direct our attention to Camden County, where we talk about Commissioner Steve Duggan.
Speaking of politics, right?
Yeah, speaking of politics, an update on Camden County Republican Central Committee actually come out and ask for Commissioner Duggan's resignation.
Yeah, so the Republican Central Committee formally censured 2nd District Commissioner Steve Duggan, and they're calling for his resignation. I mean, they're not playing around here. This is pretty strong stuff after an outside investigation found that Dugan may have sexually harassed an employee, calling the allegations a very close call, the investigation did, and likely retaliated after his conduct was reported. In the formal censure dated March 24th, the committee pointed to the allegations, noting Dugan was warned about his behavior by a fellow commissioner, but he failed to take appropriate corrective action. The quote is, such conduct is inconsistent with the obligations of public office, undermines public trust, and exposes Camden County to potential legal and financial risk, the committee said. As a result, the committee formally censured Dugan, called on Dugan to immediately cease and conduct inconsistent with application of the law and ethical obligations to take full responsibility for his actions, and they called on Dugan to resign, citing the best interest of Camden County citizens and the county government. Lake Expo reached out to Dugan for a comment on the committee's action, and he replied with this. He said, "Thank you for reaching out. At the time, I have no plans to step down and remain focused on fulfilling my responsibilities. I do not have any additional comments to share at this time, but I appreciate the opportunity to respond." So it's a no response. But he did say, I'm not stepping down.
Yeah, and honestly, like, I'm not even sure what this means. Like, so the Camden County Republican Central Committee censors him.
Yeah.
All that means is he can't speak at their events, which is interesting in itself, but just because they're asking him to step down doesn't mean he has to. And as of Tuesday morning, he was still in the commission's office conducting business with no plans of stepping down. And so I'm not really sure if this is as much like a PR move. I know that Central Committee members are elected, but as a result, the committee said, hey, we're going to censor you. Okay. We want you to take responsibility for your actions, and they want him to resign. But the only reason that he would actually have to resign would be if the prosecutor enacted quo warranto, which is used to challenge an individual's rights to hold public office, could remove unlawful occupants, test legal qualifications, and acts against corporate misuse of power. I've reached out to Prosecutor Grosvenor. Grosvenor and ask her, would you do this? And is this true? Because that's just what I found. And so I don't know if this means anything, like this Central Committee. And there's been a lot of controversy and a lot of unethical behavior by elected Republicans in the history of the Central Committee. And they've never come out and censored somebody that I know of.
Right.
And so it's just interesting that all of a sudden the Central Committee wants to be so vocal here, and something that, as far as I know, doesn't really mean a whole lot.
Yeah, it's like a slap on your wrist from your mom or something here. You know what I have noticed the last few years in a lot of political offices, I mean, even the federal, the big, senators and representatives, is like there's no way to get rid of bad ones. It seems like, you get somebody in there and they go totally against, what the people who voted for them want, but there's no way to get them out of there, right? And I mean, not just as a commissioner, I don't know if there's a way to get, like you said, there might be with the prosecutor, but on a federal level, it doesn't seem like there really is. So I guess that needs to be fixed, if at all possible, in our system or something. But it's too bad that it has to happen. But it's interesting that he got censured by his own people, basically.
Yeah, so it's interesting. We have this election coming up in Camden County, and we're talking about, Osage Beach is not sure about their current mayor. They make statements.
Yeah.
The Camden County Commission is seeing the Central Committee censor and seek a resignation from a commissioner. And so it all leads into Tuesday's election, which is right around the corner, and we have a sample ballot to get you ready. And the ones I want to talk about, important issues, the Camdenton School Board.
Yeah.
There's 4 candidates, and you get to choose 3. And I'm going to just tell you that my 3 picks, I don't normally do this, but if I were, and I will be voting for Shelley Creed, Troy Reisner, and Callie Hensey with the Camdenton School Board. Those are all 3 current school board members that have been instrumental.
Because this is vote for 3 and there's 4 candidates, so you can vote for 3 of them.
And Nancy Masterson, worth noting, she was part of the regime for a long time that got voted out. And so I like the direction of the Camdenton School District. As a taxpayer in Camden County, I will certainly be voting for Shelley Creed, Troy Reisner, and Callie Hensey.
Right.
And then the other ones is you look at different propositions.
Yeah.
So one was the city of Laurie. And this isn't a lot of voters, but it is Camden County.
Yeah.
And so for those of you, the 2 questions of shall the city of Laurie impose a local half-cent sales tax for funding parks and recreation and for police sales tax, I say yes on both of those.
Okay.
Because people don't understand these small police departments, what they're up against. And so a half cent, that would essentially be 50 cents on every $100 you spend. So $5 on a $1,000 purchase, and they can do a lot with that over the course of a year. And then, of course, City of Osage Beach, got to pick a mayor, Osage Beach. Do you vote for the incumbent, Michael Harmison? Do you vote for one of the 2 challengers, Richard Ross or Angie Schuster? We'll be following this. I'm actually, I love national politics. When it comes to, elections, I love watching the results. But for good, bad, or indifferent, I'm excited about following the election on Tuesday.
It is fun. It is interesting. And then you got the proposition in Sunrise Beach. Shall the village of Sunrise Beach impose a sales tax of 1% for the purpose of improving public safety?
Yes.
Yes on that?
Live in Sunrise Beach? Yes. Get behind Chief Scott Craig. That department in the last 4 years has doubled their deputy size, and they have one of the largest square footage, space-wise, the largest coverage space. 100%. They need help, and this will be earmarked. It will go towards public safety. It will not be able to be used anywhere else. And you can go listen to, I talked with Chief Scott Craig Saturday at the Lake West Business Expo, and he broke that down. I think that's one you certainly want to do. And so, yeah, get ready. I mean, if you aren't ready, know your precinct and get to the polls early. Should be a big election on Tuesday.
Tuesday, April 7th. Get out there, get voting, know where your voting site is, and that's pretty easy to figure all that out, right? So be sure to vote.
Yeah, the local websites, Camden County especially, does a great job. You can find out first if you're registered to vote and where your precinct is. All right, so hey, big story to City of Camdenton. We talk about Camden County so much, but we were seeing murmurings, including an actual elected alderman posting online about, hey, you should not trust your government. They're giving sales kickbacks to local developer.
Yeah.
And so we both had gotten messages, and we're trying to follow this, right, about what exactly was going on. We got an inquiry from a citizen, and although the city wouldn't confirm, I believe that we're talking about Aldi, the grocery store, coming to Camdenton.
Over there by the Culvers over there, right?
That site. You see the site map right there. And there is a redevelopment agreement. And so we see here the Facebook post from Alderman Daniel Owsley on Tuesday, March 17th. And it talked about a sales kickback for a local developer. That was on the 20th, and he was referring to the Tuesday, March 17th meeting. Talked about not only did they push this through, but they had first and second readings at this meeting. And this was a redevelopment agreement between the city of Camdenton and Hawthorne investors. They don't list all of it, but again, I believe this to be the Aldi grocery store, right? It's a 5-page agreement, and it looks like the city's going to agree to pay the developer $1.38 million to offset developers' cost. And then I also sold terms like calculation period, commencement date, incremental sales tax revenues, annual appropriations. And so I'm like, wait, is this a TIF? So I reached out to city administrator and the entire board of aldermen to find out. And Jeff Hooker got right a hold of me. The city administrator said, no, this is not a TIF. This is a temporary revenue sharing proposal. So very unique, actually. As a matter of fact, that in Camdenton, the city of Camdenton imposes a 2% general sales tax in the city of Camdenton. And so for the next 8 to 12 years, with a maximum of 15 years, half of that 2% that's collected at that proposed site, I believe Aldi, that 2% there, 1% will be issued back to the developer to offset the cost of the development up to $1.38 million. And so when you look at projections, the city's looking at, with what they project this location to do, about $360,000 in new tax. This isn't taken out of another budget. This isn't coming out of a tax collecting entity that's getting robbed here. So $180,000 of that projected $360,000 would be reimbursed or be cut back to the developer, up to $1.38 million. Now you look at, they're proposing a 22,000 square foot facility. That is going to increase everything from school, what they're going to be getting from the real estate property value. It's going to be a good thing. I just think this is unique. It's not a TIF, but for the city of Camdenton, when you look around you look at Osage Beach, you look at the city of Lake Ozark, you look at all of their huge developments and new projects coming, they're going to have to stay relevant and competitive. And so I think this is actually an outside the box way to do this. I didn't have any issue with this. Of course, they said as far as the vote, first and second, 99%, they claim, of their readings now, first and second reading take place at the same meeting. They have so much business. If they're in unison on it now, they don't feel like anything's going to change in 2 weeks. Administrator Hooker said now, if aldermen have an issue with this and they object, say, hey, we want to table the second vote so it gives us more time, they'd absolutely do that. I thank Administrator Jeff Hooker for getting back to me on that. But it looks like they weren't on the same page. But I don't see this as being the city of Camdenton giving a huge break or doing anything that was unfair. I think it's an outside the box way to attract, because if we're talking about 22,000 square foot Aldi, that is huge for the city of Camdenton.
That's big. They're going to have to do something with traffic around there, because that's just going to add to the traffic right around highways 54 and 5 right there.
No doubt. All right, so hey, we'll keep you posted on that. Of course, more to come, and you probably saw it in our next headline. 2 13-year-old juveniles accused of threatening to shoot up the Camdenton Middle School.
Yeah, this thing was scary. You know, I mean, you see these school shootings now, so it's a real deal. So the story is law enforcement, with the assistance from the Snapchat social media site, and the FBI got involved in this, making quick work in identifying 2 students accused of making threats to shoot up Camden County Middle School. Chief Deputy Scott Hines says the various agencies wasted no time after learning about the threat in coordinating the investigation. Camdenton police say the parents of the 2 13-year-old boys were contacted and interviews conducted with the parents and the teens. The teens admitted to chatting on the site, with only one of them admitting to posting the threats. They both claimed there was no actual intent to follow through on the threat. Charges against the 2 have been referred to the Camden County Juvenile Justice Center. But again, in today's world, this is a serious thing, because these school shootings have been happening.
Yeah, and this is incredibly scary, because in all likelihood, you're probably talking about 2 13-year-old boys that thought it would be fun. But unfortunately, there needs to be an example made here, because you need to let all kids know this is not okay. And the response that takes and the resources that are eaten up once this happens are absolutely catastrophic. And so, like, children need to know this is not okay. This is not a joke. This is not something you play with. And so I thought that first, The Camdenton School District were on top of this. The Camdenton Police Department were on top of this. The Camdenton Sheriff's Department was on top of this. Everyone involved was diligent. They acted quickly. And I'm so thankful that the outcome was what it was, because in these situations, you know, your mind goes a million places. They could always end differently, as we've seen in other areas.
You can't just ignore this stuff, because so many of these school shooters have followed through, you know, and you got kids, teachers, a whole bunch of people dead. You got to act on this, and they did, so good for them.
Yeah, and so charges against the two, as you said, have been referred to the Camden County Juvenile Justice Center. Will be interesting how those charges are filed or how that proceeds. All right, so hey, huge news. We've been following it, right? The deadline to file for the for the primary election in August, with the general election in November, is March 31st. That was Tuesday, right? We're now in April. And so I have an update. Presiding Commissioner Ike Skelton, we weren't sure, is he running again for presiding commissioner? Well, I talked to him Tuesday at 4 o'clock. He said, I drove to Jeff City on March 31st, minutes before the deadline to file to run for the Missouri Senate.
Really? Wow.
Indeed. This is what I feel called to do. I believe I can be more effective in guiding how laws are created instead of fighting them at the local level. This is a great leap I am taking, but I believe it's the direction I should go. I look forward to the opportunity, through God's grace, to represent Camden County and all the counties within the 6th Senatorial District of Missouri.
Wow.
Huge
That's
news.
a big step.
Huge step. And to run for Senate, kind of late to the party. You talk about, yes, that was deadline, but you're talking about an election for the 6th District, the Senatorial District of Missouri, that has Rudy Veit, Derek Spicer, Jake Vogel, Dr. Lisa Thomas, and now Ike Skelton. And so this also means that we're going to have a new presiding commissioner in Camden County in 2027.
Who's filed for that?
Well, so far we have Nick Sherrill, Kathy Holstein Campbell,
right? Remember that?
Daniel Ousley, on the Democratic side.
On the Democratic side,
So, and so far, those are the three. I do believe that Nathan Patton has also thrown his name in the cap, so we've got at least 4, but we anticipated that Ike Skelton would be rerunning the incumbent, and so now we know he's running for the Missouri State Senate, the 6th District, the Senatorial District of Missouri, and of course that election is in August, the primary for the general in November. So interesting news, and we've been following. I've been pushing and asking and wanting to know and just been waiting. Talk about better late than never. Right down to the deadline. So
big news.
Pretty big stuff there. All right, so make sure you get ready to vote on Tuesday. We're running short on time, so I want to make sure we get in with it being Easter week, Holy Week coming up. Our weekly scripture is, this is the day which the Lord has made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. Psalm 118, 24. And as I read that, we can rejoice in today, because honestly, every day we like to bring our petitions and our needs, and we'll be thinking about what's next for us, right?
Yeah.
But in a season of Easter, with Resurrection Sunday coming, I think it's a great reminder to look back at all the times God has already answered our prayers, rescued us from despair, and come through on his promises. And with Easter Sunday and Resurrection Sunday right around the corner, that was fitting. This is the day the Lord has made. We'll rejoice and be glad in it.
You know, and I repeat that one to myself on some bad days, because you go, you know, what is going on? Yeah, this is horrible, terrible. And then you say, this is the day the Lord has made. So he's got some plan, some purpose in this right now, right?
And for everyone, for all the people running for office, for all the people involved in these local elections, like, I hope that you'll hear this and you'll read this, because that could be helpful.
Yeah.
Right? Because this is crazy. Like, politics is wild. It's not always pretty, and it can get nasty. So, hey, we hope you guys have an incredible Easter weekend. Don't forget, Captain Ron's is having an Easter side beach service.
That's right.
This Sunday, with service starting at 10 o'clock with James Hussey and Brian King from the House of Love Church with their brunch buffet. Going to be awesome. Also, don't miss Susan and Peter Brown, part 4 of Lake Royalty on the Spotlight Show.
Love those people. They help build the lake into what it is right now. Their families. And coming up in future weeks, we have so many great shows. We're going to have Jason Whittle on. We're going to have the Tipton State Champion basketball team on and everything. So a lot of fun stuff coming up.
Going to be great. Also, don't miss, coming up Saturday, Jessica Bruce and State Rep Jeff Vernetti on the April monthly market update. Pretty great. And also get ready for the LOZ featured doc series just around the corner. But hey, that's going to do it for this week's Cup of Coffee from Slumberland at the Lake.